My stepbrother bullied me for years. I recorded him and got him expelled. Now my family wants me to say the video was fake to save his future. For the past year, my stepbrother Jonathan, 17M, has been tormenting me at school, and yesterday it just blew up. Because of how messed up this issue is, let me give you some history before I tell you what happened. 3 years ago, at her company's annual dinner, my mom met Jonathan's father, Harris, 45M. Mom had been parenting me alone since my dad died in a vehicle accident when I was 5 years old. Before she met Harris, she had a few dates but nothing committed. He seemed to genuinely care about her and was pleasant and successful. Before getting married, they dated for around a year. About 6 months into their relationship, Harris organized a dinner where I first met Jonathan. At first, Jonathan appeared to be fine, quiet but courteous. After supper, we even played video games together, and I recall thinking that maybe having a sibling wouldn't be that horrible. Being an only child has always left me feeling lonely at times, to be honest. After the wedding and when we all moved in together, everything was different. The initial weeks were uncomfortable but doable. Then, when our parents weren't present, Jonathan began to say these insignificant things. He would remark things like that I was probably in dire need of a father figure or that his dad was essentially my mom's meal ticket, which is untrue. My mom is a wealthy marketing executive. My grandma gave me a number of photo albums, and I have wonderful recollections of my dad. I initially tried to ignore it, assuming he was simply getting used to the new circumstances. However, the remarks continued to deteriorate. He would ridicule me for keeping my dad's photos in my room, telling me that I should move on since his dad was now my father. He would tell me that I was fortunate that they even allowed me to live in their house because, in reality, Harris had purchased it. They really sold both of their previous homes to buy it jointly. Mom would respond that I was being overly sensitive and that Jonathan was only attempting to get used to having a new family member when I tried to bring this up to her. Jonathan's transfer to my school at the start of this school year was the beginning of the real horror. Our parents believed that having us attend the same school would promote brotherly bonding. Jonathan plays football, has a large circle of friends, and essentially controls the social scene, making him the quintessential popular kid. I have a tiny circle of pals who share my hobbies, and I'm more interested in academics and computer programming. At school, Jonathan began spreading all these tales about me. He told people that I'm jealous of him because he has a real father, that I frantically attempt to win his dad's approval, I really avoid Harris out of respect for my dad's memories, and that I cry myself to sleep wishing for my dead dad. I don't. Because they had heard about my emotional issues, even strangers would approach me and ask if I needed an embrace. It got so awful. Physically, it began modestly. In the corridors, he would run into me and say it was an accident. With a phony voice that made his pals laugh, he would knock down my books and say sorry. However, things worsened. In the cafeteria, he once accidentally poured his energy drink all over my laptop. All of my programming efforts were stored on that laptop, and although I was able to preserve the hard drive, the laptop itself was destroyed. Jonathan said it was just an accident and offered to let me use his old laptop when I told Mom and Harris. They told me I was exaggerating the situation because they thought he was right. Even Mom's sister, Aunt Sarah, who was formerly quite close to me and always supported me, began to advise me to make a greater effort to connect with Jonathan. He's just being a typical teenage boy, and you're too sensitive, just like your father was, she would add. My dad was always my hero, so having her point the finger at me in that final remark was incredibly hurtful. Things dramatically worsened around a month ago. After gym class, Jonathan and his pals cornered me in the boys' locker room. They were pushing me around, removing my glasses, and making fun of the fact that I couldn't even fight back like a real man, all without actually striking me. I decided I had had enough at that point. When Jonathan was around, I began surreptitiously recording everything on my phone. I was desperate, even though I realized it might not be the correct thing to do. When I told them what was going on, they didn't believe me. I got just what I needed 2 weeks ago. Tommy, a freshman, was being harassed by Jonathan and his pals. Tommy is quite bashful and little for his age. He was trying to jump and catch his bag as they threw it over his head in a game of keep away. They referred to him by derogatory terms, saying things like, "What's wrong, short stack? Unable to get there?" I took notes on everything. Jonathan went too far though. Jonathan became enraged and gave Tommy a strong shove when he eventually succeeded in grabbing his luggage. Tommy's nose got bloody after he collapsed and struck his face against a locker. I went directly to the principal with the video. Despite their generally lax enforcement of our school's zero-tolerance policy for bullying, they were unable to ignore it when there was video proof of actual physical attack. By the end of the day, Jonathan was formally discharged from school when they phoned Harris to come get him. Everything blew up when we got home that afternoon. Jonathan sobbed to his father about how his life had been ruined, how he would never be able to attend a reputable university, and how this would ruin his chances of receiving a football scholarship. Harris was enraged with me, shouting that I had betrayed family, and that I was only envious of Jonathan's accomplishments. The worst part, though? My mother sided with them. In fact, she advised me to visit them first rather than the principal first. She claimed that by going behind their backs, I had betrayed my family and that in order to get Jonathan back into school, I had to admit to the principal that I had altered the tape or something. Mom began to cry when I refused and tried to tell them about all the bullying I had experienced, claiming that I was ending her marriage and that I should put family first. Then, 4 months before I turned 18, Harris threatened to throw me out. I contacted my grandma, Dad's mother, because I could take it no more. I've been staying with her ever since she came to get me that evening. My mother is constantly texting and calling, switching between threatening to ruin my future and guilt-tripping me over destroying our family. While some of my students are accusing me of being a snitch, others who have also been harassed by Jonathan are expressing gratitude to me. I know what I did was right, therefore I don't regret anything, but now everything is in such disarray. The worst thing is that my mother, who has always encouraged me to confront bullies, is now telling me that I should have remained silent. Update 1. I want to start by expressing my gratitude to everyone who left a remark on my previous post. All of the encouragement has been so overwhelming that I needed some time to take it all in before updating. A lot has transpired during the last 2 weeks, and they have been intense. My mom unexpectedly showed up at my grandmother's place the day after I posted. Despite her displeasure, my grandmother allowed her entry. Mom appeared awful, as if she hadn't had any sleep in days. When she first saw me, she broke down in tears and said she wanted to make amends because she had failed me as a mother. I felt sorry for her for a second. She then mentioned Jonathan. She said that although she could understand why I did what I did, I had to realize that Jonathan's entire future was on the line. It seems that 3 other schools in our district attempted to enroll him after he was dismissed from our school, but all of them turned him away due to the bullying event. I only showed the principal the video, but it somehow got out there, and suddenly Jonathan was being called a violent bully. Jonathan was reportedly despondent, seldom eating, and always talking about how his life was over, according to Mom. She informed me that he might now be turned down by colleges after losing his shot at a football scholarship. She repeatedly reached for my hand during our conversation, but I resisted. She was still attempting to make me feel bad about defending myself, and I couldn't believe it. After sitting silently in her armchair through all of this, my grandma eventually said something. She revealed to me something I was unaware of. My dad had experienced terrible bullying during his high school years. He seemed to be quite similar to me at my age, quiet, interested in school, and a simple target for bullies. When the bullies pushed him down a flight of stairs one day, it got so terrible that he ended up in the hospital with a fractured arm. He was altered by that experience. After that, according to my grandma, he was resolved to never allow bullies to get away with harming people. He always taught me to advocate for others and myself because of this. She claimed that he would have been pleased with the actions I took to safeguard Tommy, the freshman, as well as myself. My mother dropped the true bombshell as I was still processing this new information about my dad. She sobbed as she disclosed that Harris had threatened to file for divorce if she didn't accept responsibility for the video's editing and write a statement claiming that I had fabricated everything to get Jonathan back into school. She pleaded with me to help her keep her marriage together, stating that she couldn't endure another broken relationship. My own mother was pleading with me to lie and accept responsibility for everything in order to keep her husband from abandoning her, and I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My grandmother must have noticed my surprise because she told my mom to go right away. She claimed that a mother didn't deserve to be called a mother at all if she asked her child to take responsibility for their own mistreatment. My grandma handed me a collection of letters my dad had written to me before he passed away after Mom left. She believed I needed them immediately, even though they were meant to be presented to me when I turned 18. He expressed his desire for me to always stand up for what's right, even when everyone else was against me, in one of them, which was written just 1 week prior to his accident. He wrote that being brave is about doing the right thing in the face of fear, not about never being afraid. In the meantime, education has become more difficult. Through the use of photoshopped images of me with derogatory captions and the dissemination of false information that I'm mentally ill and made things up for attention, Jonathan's friends have been harassing me online. However, an unforeseen event occurred. The freshman Jonathan had harassed, Tommy, shared his own experience. Tommy informed the principal of further instances in which he had been harassed by Jonathan. Then other children began to come forward, like dominoes falling. Some even have recordings of themselves. One female had recorded being harassed about her weight by Jonathan and his friends for weeks. Screenshots of Jonathan harassing him and threatening to tell everyone we're in the possession of another man. Yesterday, I was called into the school counselor's office. A big folder containing complaints about Jonathan from the previous year that had been misplaced or disregarded was presented to me by her. She asked whether I would be willing to assist in establishing an anti-bullying committee at the school and expressed regret for not acting sooner. She claimed that by confronting Jonathan, I had inspired other kids to speak up as well. I'm a cunning kid who set Jonathan up because I was envious of him, Harris has been telling everyone who will listen. He is being believed by a number of family members, including my Aunt Sarah. She gave me a lengthy lecture over the phone yesterday, expressing her disappointment that I had ruined a young man's future over teenage drama. I should have handled it within the family instead of embarrassing everyone by going to the principal, she remarked, echoing Mom's statement. I continue to reside at my grandmother's home. Since I'll be 18 in 4 months anyhow, she's actually assisting me with researching legal emancipation. I have a strong case, especially considering the circumstances, according to the attorney we spoke with. I constantly get these lengthy, tearful letters from my mom saying that I'm tearing the family apart, and that I'll regret it when I'm older. I no longer reply to them. It's unbelievable to me that she would put her marriage before her own son. I'm attempting to concentrate on my studies and maintain my marks at the moment. Despite everything, my grandmother has been incredible. She even made me a little study space in her guest room, just as I had at home. Reading my dad's letters is helpful on days that are more difficult than others. It is as though he anticipated my need for his counsel years later. I'm just trying to get through each day right now, but I'll update again if something important occurs. Once again, I want to thank everyone for their support. Knowing that I'm not alone in advocating for myself is a huge comfort. Update 2. Things have taken a surprising turn, and I'm still figuring out what happened. Karen, Jonathan's birth mother, sent me a Facebook message last week, which surprised me. She claimed that one of Harris's relatives had told her about what had occurred and that she wanted to meet with him to discuss it. I was somewhat apprehensive at first. I was unsure of her motivation because Harris had consistently portrayed her as an unstable individual who had deserted Jonathan. However, my grandma consented to accompany me, so last Saturday we met Karen at a coffee shop close to her home. Everything I believed to be true about the scenario was totally altered by what she told us. It turns out that Jonathan had previously engaged in severe bullying. Prior to my mom and Harris's marriage, he had received 3 suspensions from his former school for harassing other pupils. The most recent instance was very awful. As a prank, he and his friends had trapped a child in the gym storage room for several hours. Following that episode, Karen had attempted to get Jonathan into therapy. In order to address Jonathan's violent conduct, she showed us past emails she had exchanged with Jonathan's school counselor, who strongly suggested a psychological assessment and treatment. Harris, however, had objected, claiming that Karen was attempting to portray their kid as weak and damaged. When she gave us the records from their custody dispute, it was the true stunner. Harris had obtained full custody because he had superior counsel and persuaded the court that Karen was trying to create problems where there weren't any by insisting on therapy, not because he was the better parent. Not only did he transfer Jonathan to my school because of the marriage, but his previous school had threatened to expel him if he committed another infraction. As she was telling us all of this, Karen started crying. She claimed that although she had made an effort to remain involved in Jonathan's life, Harris had threatened to take legal action against her if she attempted to get in touch with his school or intervene. She kept apologizing to me for not speaking up sooner, claiming that she was too scared of Harris to take any action. Harris had done this previously, which explains a lot of why he was so fast to threaten divorce if I didn't accept responsibility. Instead of genuinely assisting Jonathan in resolving his problems, he is more concerned with maintaining his reputation. He has been repeating this cycle for years. Last night, I presented my mother with all of this material. Karen had provided us with copies of everything, including the court records, emails, and school reports, but I wasn't sure if she would believe it. I saw genuine understanding appear on Mom's face for the first time since this whole thing began when she read it all. At last, she broke down and acknowledged that she had been seeing Jonathan's conduct even prior to the school event, but she had been too scared of losing Harris to recognize it. She told me how some parents had stopped allowing their children to attend study groups at our house, how she had heard Jonathan being mean to other children when he believed no adults were around, and how she had noticed my withdrawal and anxiety but had told herself it was just teenage stuff. Mom moved out of Harris's house today. Yes, the same Aunt Sarah who chastised me is the one she's staying with. After seeing the proof, she has entirely altered her mind. Mom says she can't stay with someone who would protect a bully at the expense of other children, even if that child is his, and she has already filed for divorce, but not because of Harris's ultimatum. In order to get the custody agreement examined, Karen is collaborating with her attorneys. She has already discussed Jonathan's background and needs with counselors at a school in her state and wants to get him into the therapy he ought to have received years ago. Harris is enraged that all of this has come to light. The most unexpected aspect? Our principal has been contacted by Jonathan's former school. It appears that they are looking into the handling of Jonathan's bullying accusations and the reasons behind the loss or disregard of reports of his actions. Although it hasn't been confirmed yet, there are hints that Harris may have been involved. All of this is still registering in my mind. It's somewhat comforting to know that I wasn't insane and that Jonathan had a lengthy past that I was unaware of. However, it's disheartening to consider that perhaps none of this would have occurred if Jonathan had received assistance years prior, when Karen first became aware of the issues. My mother is always complaining that she should have done a better job of protecting me. Even if there is still too much hurt between us, at least she now realizes how horrible what she wanted me to do was. In order to understand why she was so willing to overlook the warning flags, she is discussing seeking therapy for herself. I'll give you another update if anything significant occurs, but for now, I'm just trying to concentrate on having a successful end to the school year. According to my grandma, I should be proud of myself for not only confronting Jonathan but also for being the one to end the years-long cycle of silence that had been shielding him. Update 3. 3 months have passed since my previous report, and things have finally begun to return to normal. I thought I should give you all a final update because a lot has changed. About a month ago, once my mom acquired her own house, I moved back in with her. Despite being smaller than our previous home, the flat nevertheless feels more like home. She continues to apologize nearly daily, and even though I've forgiven her, our relationship has changed. We both seem cautious now, as if we're worried about saying the wrong thing. Surprisingly, I chose to start family counseling 2 weeks ago. The counselor is assisting us in improving our communication and re-establishing mutual trust. There were some unsettling findings from the examination at Jonathan's previous school. It appears that Harris had been contributing regularly to the school's athletic department, which could account for the disappearance of numerous complaints regarding Jonathan. A thorough investigation is underway by the school board, and a number of administrators have been placed on leave. Last month, Jonathan relocated to his mother's state and is now enrolled in a new school that focuses on behaviorally challenged adolescents. I've heard that he's doing better now that Karen has him in rigorous therapy. He apologized for everything in a lengthy Facebook message that I received. He wrote about how therapy is helping him deal with his anger management difficulties and how he's finally realizing why he acted the way he did. I haven't replied yet. Perhaps I will, but right now I'm not prepared. The school's anti-bullying committee has flourished. The school administration is now taking bullying concerns much more seriously after we assisted a number of students in coming forward with their stories. Actually, I sit on the committee with Tommy, the freshman whom Jonathan harassed. He has grown to be the kind of brother I had thought Jonathan would be, like a little brother to me. The remaining letters from my dad were given to me by my grandma, and reading them has been both devastating and therapeutic. In one of them, he expresses his desire that I will become a person who defends others, and it seems as though he is still mentoring me despite the passage of time. Last week, my mom's divorce was finalized. Harris attempted to argue against it, but he immediately changed his mind once Mom's attorney presented the information regarding Jonathan's history and Harris's role in concealing it. Mom is also receiving therapy to help her understand why she was so ready to overlook Jonathan's bullying warning signs. She claims that she lost sight of what was truly important, being a good mother, because she was so terrified of being alone once more when Dad passed away. The most surprising thing happened last week. I received a letter from Karen. She expressed her gratitude to me for being the first to reveal Jonathan's situation. She claimed that after years of feeling bad about not being able to support her son, she has found peace in witnessing him finally receive the assistance he requires. As a thank you, she also wrote me a check for my education fund, which I was able to return with the assistance of my grandma. Accepting it didn't seem right. Next month, I will graduate and move to another state for college. My dad left some money for my schooling, and my grandmother is assisting me with the money now that I've been accepted into a reputable computer science program. To have a new beginning ahead of me feels nice. Although fewer people now believe Harris, he continually disparages me to everyone who will listen. I've received apologies from some family members who initially supported him, such as Aunt Sarah, who now gives me cookies every weekend and never stops telling me how proud my dad would be. I've learned a lot about sticking up for what's right, even when it's difficult, from this entire process. I've discovered that you should continue to protect yourself even if the individuals who are supposed to do so fail you. I'm grateful for everyone who supported me, especially my grandma, who taught me what true family support looks like. I'm no longer furious. Years after my brother evicted me for his growing family, he now wants to move into my home. Am I the asshole for refusing to help? Alright, this is a long one, and I honestly need an outside perspective. Several years ago, I, 28F, was living with my older brother Tom, 37M, and his wife Karen, 34F. I had just graduated from college, had a pretty bad job at the time, and was struggling to make ends meet. Tom had a house with a guest room, and he told me I could stay with them for a while until I got back on my feet. I was beyond grateful, and I made sure to help out however I could, cooking, cleaning, buying groceries when I could afford it. Fast forward about 6 months. I finally landed a decent job and was able to contribute more financially. I was on my way to becoming independent. Around this time, Karen got pregnant. At first, everything seemed fine, but then Karen started dropping subtle hints that they needed more space for the baby. The hints soon turned into direct conversations about how they needed the guest room for a nursery. Tom assured me that I could stay until I found a new place, but Karen was clearly becoming more agitated by the day. Then, one afternoon, I came home from work to find all my stuff packed up and sitting in the hallway. Tom told me that Karen had decided they needed me out ASAP. No discussion, no warning. He tried to soften the blow by saying they'd help me with a security deposit on a new place, but it was humiliating and hurtful. I ended up couch surfing for a couple of months until I could afford a small studio apartment. It was a really tough time for me, both emotionally and financially. I'll never forget the feeling of being thrown out of my own brother's house like that. Fast forward to now. Tom's life has taken a turn. His business went under, and they're having financial issues. Last week, he called me out of the blue, sounding desperate. They're being evicted from their house and have nowhere to go. He asked if he, Karen, and their 2 kids could stay with me for a few months, while they get back on their feet. Here's the thing. I'm doing much better now. I have a good job, a nice apartment, and I've been saving for a house. I can technically accommodate them, but the thought of letting them move in after what they did to me years ago just doesn't sit right. I told Tom I needed to think about it, and ever since, he's been sending me guilt-trippy texts about how family is supposed to be there for each other, and how they have nowhere else to go. Even my parents have gotten involved, saying I should let them stay with me because they're family, and what happened years ago is in the past. But here's the kicker. Karen hasn't apologized once for how they treated me. Not a word. She didn't even acknowledge it when we spoke on the phone. It's like they expect me to just forget about it and welcome them with open arms. I'm torn. Part of me feels like I should help because they are my family, but the other part of me feels like this is karmic justice. Am I the asshole for refusing to let them stay with me after what they did? Or should I let the past go and help them out in their time of need?